Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Liesbeth Foesters, UCB's Vice President and Head of External and Clinical Supply Quality. Liesbeth is responsible for a large multinational team of over 130 quality professionals who collaborate with various different functions across the organisation, whether that's CMC, supply chain, external manufacturing, artworks and packaging, engineering, IT, or MSAT. And I'm delighted to say that Liesbeth will be speaking at CDMO Live in May, where she'll be talking about quality excellence and how to embed quality into external manufacturing operations. Liesbeth, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. To start with then, it'd be great if we could talk a bit about your personal journey and how you've come to leading quality across such a wide and diverse function. What's your journey been, please?
So I started in telecom, so that's completely something else. I'm a biochemical engineer, but I'm just, as long as I'm challenged, you can put me, I think, still wherever. But then I did a little project as an external in UCB, and that's where I got my first connection with my current boss, the head of quality, Sylvie Rasmussen, and she offered me a role within UCB. I think the reason why my scope is quite diverse is, first of all, I've done many roles in quality, so I've moved around. I'm quite dedicated, I'm a hard worker, and I'm very curious. So when an opportunity comes, I always say yes. And I think this brings then the benefit that you have a little bit of knowledge of multiple parts of the organization. Then there are always organizational opportunities. So things happen in all industries, right? Or in all companies, and sometimes you're a bit lucky. My luck that I got into the leadership team where I'm in now is because my current manager had some personal challenges and they needed a very rapid replacement ad interim while I was even on maternity leave. I came back out of my maternity leave earlier to step up. So this is a bit of the luck part because, even if you work hard and you have potential, the role needs to be there, right? So sometimes you need to be a bit more patient. Sometimes it comes faster. And then the third part, I believe, is because in UCB, we have been structured in a global quality organization, but our internal manufacturing capabilities were still part of the internal manufacturing organization. All the cross-functional roles linked to manufacturing were in my scope. Now, recently we have evolved and the internal quality organization is now within the team, but I still have those like IT, SAP, artwork, packaging, those kind of topics are still in my remit today. So it's a bit of everything. And in the end, work hard, prove in your current role what you can do. Don't focus too much on the next role and the next role will come.
What was it about quality? When did you get bitten by the quality bug and really focus on that and build your career around the quality function?
Purely accidental. And I'm still not convinced I can only do quality. I think that I'm probably not the most typical quality leader. I ended up in that project. They just asked for my help. And I said, yeah, okay. As I said, I always say yes to opportunities. I really have a strong connection with my leader. That's the reason that I joined quality. I still believe that quality of the product is key. Huh? I mean, the price you forget, but the quality of whatever you buy, this is what you will remember. If something breaks down quicker or something like a watch that you can wear for years, that's what you remember. So quality, I still believe, is key. Now, this being said, I love supply chain too. I love manufacturing. I love getting the product out on time to the patients. So I like that in my role as a quality professional for so many different functions, I can still taste the other parts of the pharma environment too. So TBD where I will land in the future.
You mentioned working across various different stakeholders, and obviously quality has to do that. Quality has to get involved with CMC and supply chain and IT and everything. I wonder what advice you could share about how to ensure that quality remains at the forefront when you're collaborating with all these different functions.
I think the first thing that is important is be around the table when decisions are made or when topics are discussed. Preferable being asked around the table because you can be forcing yourself be around the table. But if you're asked around the table because they see the value you can bring and they know that if you're there, the chances of success are higher. This is how you can convince business. So I believe that I have strong relationship with my business counterparts. I try to be very business oriented. Compliance is key and quality, of course, but with a mindset of efficiency, with a mindset to understand what my business needs are. And then if you build that strong relationship, they want you there. So in all the governances in UCB, we are around the table. I'm in many, but some of my peers are in others. We are always around the table. And because we are then proactively aware of what's going to happen, or when we are in a reactive mode as UCB because an issue happens, we're again around the table to find solutions from the start. This is where quality can bring the most value. If you're more at the end side and then they decide everything, and then, by the way, can you please make it compliant at the end? Yeah, this is very inefficient. So building your strong relationship with your partners and be around the table.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're different in terms of your personal style. You're different to your typical quality professional, perhaps, or stereotypical quality professional. How do you establish your own personal leadership style and make an impact?
So I think being different is both a blessing and a curse. And this is my constant in my career. On one hand, so I'm a younger female leader. There is many meetings where I'm or the youngest or the only female around the table. I'm very caring. So people are really very close to me, while many leaders are more oriented to, but I'm very caring. But on the other hand, I'm very energetic, as you can see. So I bring a lot of energy into a room, but I'm also very demanding, both on myself, but also on my colleagues. And that can be my peers, my managers, my own team. So not the easiest profile, I guess. The positives are things get done. I mean, they know if I bite myself into something, I will make sure it's delivered, because otherwise, I want to make sure that everything is at the right quality. Feedback is something that is just my nature. Courageous discussions is something, if I see something that can be better, I will tell them. If I'm proud on something they have done, I will tell them. I mean, it goes in positive and in constructive.
How do people react to that? Because not everyone's great at accepting feedback.
Exactly. So that's the downside of the story. First of all, because I'm so much into the room, I need to make sure I give space to others too. And secondly is feedback is a gift, but it's not easy to have a leader that tells you constantly everything. So my team is always saying, we grow a lot with you, but we also need to swallow, right? And this is sometimes, and same for my business stakeholders, I will always say if it's not making sense, and not just because it's not making sense for quality. If it doesn't make sense in the bigger picture, I will put it out there. So this is where I'm a bit less, the quality professionals are more the knowledgeable, they know the regulations, they really understand how it's, while me, I'm more personality that is more outgoing, that is business oriented, that thinks with them, which is not so standard. So pro and cons, and I think I'm still finding my own way. I think there is the balance in being the authentic me, and on the other hand, having sufficient executive presence to balance a bit my energy where I need to balance. So yeah, this is where I am at the moment. I still believe that my team is very motivated because I bring the energy in when we do those kind of surveys, right? I'm always quite good. I have a very good retention. So my team wants to stay in the team and they feel engagement. But on the other hand, they also know in the team, you need to work hard and deliver. Pro and cons.
No matter how much of a big presence you are yourself, you need to be able to scale that and to embed a culture of quality into everything. How do you ensure that happens? And for UCB, I'm sure it is anyway, but it really is top strategic priority, right from executive level down to the shop floor. How do you do that? Because you can't be in every room all the time.
No, and that's still a challenge. I think my leader is very well connected, but still quality culture is something everybody understands it. Nobody is challenging it, but in your day-to-day, it's sometimes, if you're not a quality professional, forgotten. And this is the same in UCB. And then this is where I strongly believe that we need to lead by example. And this is the first focus. I'm working at the moment with the team to see, okay, how can we be better at that, to lead by example? Because like you said, it cannot just be coming from the top. It needs to be everywhere. Every person in the team, I think we're around 600 qualities now in the team of Sylvie. We all need to make sure that we lead by example and that we breed the quality culture.
Mm.
So this is step one. We are trying when it's quality day. Last year there was a quality day or somewhere in
Okay.
November to make this a big event and to have a CEO speaking and to really try to use this kind of little moments to bring that quality culture more in the organization. But it's still a journey. I cannot say it's bad in UCB, but are we fully there yet? No, definitely not. So it's a work in progress.
What would excellence look like for you? I mean, how would you know that you've achieved what you set out to achieve?
So for me, we are still growing enormously in the quality organization. One part is due to we are increasing capacity, we are selling more products. That's okay. But there's another part also because we need to check more, we need to be present more, like you said, we need to be in more conversations. And I strongly believe that if a quality culture is really there, the quality organization starts reducing. Because the more quality is embedded in the organization, the less you need quality to help you think. Because today you see their investigations were challenging, we're making comments, we're putting it back, it comes. That's a lot of waste in principle, waste of work. Because if it would be right first time all the time, less work for quality, less work for operations too. So I think my big KPI would be that we start reducing the quality organization instead of increasing the quality organization, unless it's really due to capacity.
That's interesting. So in a way, the more successful you become as embedding quality, the less need there is to have a dedicated quality team.
Exactly. There will always be, because some say, do we need, there's always some parts we have to do. We release a batch, right? We have a number to release the batch. There are some parts you need to sign off on the deviation. But imagine if every deviation comes to you and it's already perfect and you're just reading and think, oh yeah, indeed, exactly. Right kappas, right root cause, and you just sign it off. The enormous amount of efficiency you gain there, that's amazing. And so, yes, I really strongly believe the smaller your quality organization is, and you still have the right quality at the end, of course, this is when you have a real clear quality culture embedded.
Very interesting. At UCB, you work with, I believe, over 100 different external partners, external manufacturing, CMOs. What's your approach to that when you're starting to evaluate CMOs perhaps to work with right at the earliest stage of a working relationship? What's quality's involvement there? And once you've got your network up and running, how do you make sure that there's consistent quality standards across the network, which are probably operating on different systems? So how does your team play a role with your external partners?
So we have clear processes around that. From a selection process, we start with, so we are involved from the beginning. So we are already in the decision-making, make or buy, because of course you do it in-house or you externalize. So there is a quality representation in the make or buy decision. Then we have another representation on which, if it is make, okay, it's clear, it's in-house and we know which part of the, if it's buy, what are the different options? So we are really completely part of that decision-making process. We do due diligences first. So in the due diligence phase, my team is represented. So then always there will be a quality professional with technical professionals, HSC professionals. It's a very cross-functional team that goes on site and then evaluates the vendor. Of course, if it's an existing vendor, then we have more data. If it's a new vendor or a new site of an existing vendor, then we go with this team. There will be proper reports built. And then still it goes back to those governances to make the decision. So we have multiple factors in the decision making. Of course, there is the financial one, the quality. We have a clear part of the decision is the quality performance. You have sustainability, green, HSC, there is a long list. And then we make the decision together. So I completely am confident that if I would say this is not acceptable from a quality perspective, it would not pass. So I know that the quality focus or the quality culture is sufficient in UCB, it would not pass.
Does that ever happen? I mean, what's the standard generally, would you say, of CMOs? Do you ever get surprised by a lack of quality?
Yes, absolutely. And then, so there are two options. Or we already see in the due diligence, this is a no-go. I mean, the gap is so big between what we're expecting and what they are going to deliver. Or we're doubting. And if we're doubting, we are putting the quality audit earlier. So normally we decide and then we do a quality audit to confirm. Now, a quality audit could still say in the end, no, But okay, those, because we did the due diligence, we were already on site.
Mm-hmm.
It's a risk-based approach. Now, if we're really not certain, we can ask our global compliance team. So this is the team that is auditing across the GXPs to go there and do a proper 3-4 days audit on site to make a firm assessment. Is the quality acceptable, yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
So, or we say no from the beginning. If we're doubting, we send the quality team there. If we believe in our due diligence, it's okay. The quality audit for the formal qualification of the vendor is still coming, but we would already decide like a 90% certainty this is the vendor, and we do only one audit, only on the one that is selected.
Okay.
Because of course, otherwise you need to do 3 audits. So this is also a bit of a 4, depending on how many candidates. But yes, I am completely convinced if quality would say no, it would not pass. Honestly, I think that manufacturing and supply are sufficiently aware that they will just get themselves into trouble.
Yeah.
So this is not a win for them neither. So from that moment, we have an agreed vendor. We do the audit. We work on whatever CAPAs needs to be closed before we start GMP manufacturing. And then we build a team. Every team, so we call it a vendor team. And it has a supply chain professional, a quality professional, and a manufacturing professional. And procurement is there for the relationship, let's say. So those 3 people, let's say, run the operations. It's a bit of a small UCB management team.
Sure.
And the 3 of them are really super close and really working together. So that team will then be assigned. It can be new resources or existing one, depending on the vendor, and they will run the operations. And then we have a business contract signed and a quality agreement signed. Those are, of course, interlinked. And there we set our expectations, including KPIs, that are then monitored on a monthly basis with the vendor. And we do risk scoring also every 6 months to see, okay, where are they? And if we see the risk is low, we have less oversight. If we see the risk is high, we go in extra oversight. So we make a quality improvement plan. We send people on site. So there is a whole process to do that. So this is how we are managing the vendors.
And working presumably very closely with the quality teams at the CMO as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Different levels. So my leadership team goes in business review meetings every 6 or minimum once a year. And then the teams below are really in day-to-day contact, depending on the supply needs. But for the bigger vendors, in day-to-day contact with the quality team on site at the vendor. Correct.
Once they're up and running and you've got a very wide network there, how do you go about maintaining quality across all these different systems and all these different partners? Does it feed into one ERP at your end, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have SAP and everything comes in through the same. So if you release, it's also always through the same system. We have interfaces with the vendors. I think with SAP for HANA now, there are more opportunities. So this is something we're moving into at the moment. For a QMS point of view, we have vendors that can sign in our system, but only the biggest vendors, because you need accounts, right? For the smaller vendors, we have collaboration sites, protected collaboration sites where documents from both sides are being posted, and we all have the same data. The same SharePoint, let's say, where all the information is in, and then we would put it in our control system and the other way around. We are very clear on who owns the data, though. We can put copies in our system, but it's clear it's a copy, that the original one is at the vendor. Like batch records, for example, we can review, we can give feedback, but the originals will stay always at the vendor. So we have collaboration sites in place with all the vendors, and that goes quite well.
Is it a challenge, that integration of data and systems?
Well, honestly, in the perfect world, we would all be in the same system and we could see each other's life, right? If it's a deviation, that I could see it directly. For some vendors, we do have visibility of their systems in a protected way that we can see it. But that's more if they are big vendors that can invest themselves. Most of the vendors, it still goes with collab sites, more the old school way.
Talking about your team again, so your team of 130 quality professionals across multiple countries. How do you go about running a team like that day to day with such a geographically dispersed team?
So I have only people in Belgium and UK myself with my leadership team. So I don't have the time difference issue of 1 hour, but that's quite. No, I have some of the leaders that have both California and Japan. This is a challenge.
Yeah.
So we are quite open that if we do big team meetings, we do them every 3 months, that sometimes we put them in a Asia approved time zone, and then we say to the US folks, we will brief you after, and the other way around. So we try to be quite clear on expectations to the organization. But myself, as I said in the beginning, that I'm quite caring. I really connect with every individual once a year, minimum, to make sure that I still understand what's happening in their life. And this can be something personal, this can be something mostly professional, but I want to make sure that I don't lose connection with what happens on the floor.
So no particular work agenda?
No, exactly. It's 20 minutes they get. It's their meeting. I'm there to listen, to help, to understand what their struggles are. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. Sometimes I need to book a second one because we had too much to discuss. The beauty of it is that I still know when a baby is born or a move is they renovated a house or this kind of things. I still know, but I also really know what keeps them up at night. Because there is a big difference in what keeps me up at night. Doesn't happen a lot, but if it happens, or what keeps them up at night. And I think it's my accountability to make sure that I help or steer my leadership team or the layers below to help them. And I think that sometimes it's underestimated. That's something that really, if they tell me, I know it's important because otherwise I wouldn't bother, right? So this is where every meeting I have with them across, it's always interesting. I always learn something. I always think like, different perspective, and I didn't think about that, or that's something I clearly need to, or I should shift my priorities, or I'm bringing it back to my leadership team. So very, very interesting conversations, and it takes me quite some time. But I don't think I could lead my team the same if I would not have that kind of information. And it also gives a bit of a bond that if I see them in the office or when I'm traveling to the spaces where they are there, it's not like they only see me then. There is still a connection that I know what they're doing. I know what is in their scope. So I think that's one thing. The second thing that I do is at the end of the year, every time it's a weekend that I think, why do I do this? But it's always beneficial. I ask them to set me minimum one professional, but it could be also a personal big achievement of the year.
Okay.
So I get emails from all of them and I make a quiz out of it. So it takes me around 2 days because I answer all the emails personally and I make a big quiz out of it. And then we do a 2-hour quiz. This is so funny every year. I mean, I had a person last year that said, in the first 6 months, I lost 3 kilos. And in the second 6 months, I gained them all again. And it's not even the question, but then you need to also put the wrong answers. Sometimes tricky. But they're also very technical topics, right? I delivered this. I'm super proud of the improvement I made with my vendor. My release time is reduced from 200 days to 150 days. I mean, I saved a batch because I found the root cause in that deviation. It could be anything. But with that quiz, it's really a combination of always baby pictures, always wedding pictures. Sometimes somebody died and there is a grandmother that they're holding. So very interesting. And what is interesting is that I know because I made the quiz, but everybody knows because everybody is playing the quiz, right? So it's a fun way to still share a lot of the achievements of the organization within the team. We try to do that in a time and most of the time the Japanese are the most flexible and they call it very, very late. We try to be as conclusive. And then I do a face-to-face event every year. And there I really try to make it as interesting as possible. So to give you some example, we had a patient last year to really make the connection with the patient, which was very, very impactful. I also did a bit of what you guys do. I made a leadership forum. So I invited VPs, senior VPs across the organization, put them on a stage, had my full team there, and asked my HR to do that kind of discussion and ask them leadership questions. Very interesting because, we have some kind of biases on leaders that we only see once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But it was a very open, authentic conversation. And even the leaders thanked me after because I said it was really interesting even to see each other's answers and to learn from each other. So I also asked one of my peers, so in my external manufacturing in another company, head of external manufacturing in another company, to come to my event and share on how they were doing external manufacturing. to have a complete inside-out view. I made them squats on the Bring Sally Up song. So I really make it super diverse between fun, interesting, and I think with these little moments, I explained 3 moments now, right? The one with me, the quiz, with the emails, and a face-to-face event. You can really build a lot of connection. And you bring the cultures into one, because of course the cultures are different. So I'm always respecting the differences, but they really feel as one team with those kind of events. And that's how I try to keep my team motivated.
Yeah, very interesting. A real combination then of one-on-one time, making sure you do that, because I mean that must be quite a time commitment. Virtual meetups, and also bringing people together in person as well. It's a lot, isn't it? But I think I totally agree. If you want to really build a culture in a department and in a team, you have to use all of those different tools.
Exactly. And then I think a last thing maybe is my own leadership team, because it should not be around me, right? There is one thing that I'm not at all involved, but every person, all my internal people in my team have both a leader and a mentor. And that's another person of my leadership team. So this is how I cross-fertilize.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a proper English word, but
Yeah.
because we switch them around. So every year I make new groups. So everybody always has their normal leader, and that can be the N minus plus 1, 2, that doesn't matter. But they always have another person in the LT. And we always make groups, mentoring groups, and we give this kind of soft skill trainings to them that we make ourselves, and sometimes with an external party, it depends. And then they really discuss it. But the groups are a combination of an engineering QA, an internal manufacturing QA, an external manufacturing development, commercial, artwork, So because the team is big, with their sub-teams, they really collaborate. And as I said, move the teams around with a different leader than their own leader. So with this, I also try that my LT is very empowered and really known, not just your own LT member, but also other LT members, that there is a very strong connection. And if we have, for example, performance issue or people that are very ambitious and want to grow, I also always go to the other leader, not just their leader, but okay, what is your opinion? So I have also more inputs into the people in my organization of different leaders, and who did that person last year, and what is your opinion? And this brings quite some valuable conversation in the leadership people when we talk about people, because there's much more input.
Does that help in terms of the team's career development as well, if they're
Yes.
exposed to different perspectives and maybe see different routes in the organization?
And I really move them around because they know that within the team, so many move from development to commercial too, because we know what they want, and not just one person, but multiple. When there is a new opportunity in the team, and that happens quite a lot, because we're still growing, sadly. I'm like, okay, well, wait, that person in my one wants, or in all the discussions they had with their LT member or their mentoring, that maybe would be interesting for that person, and we talk to them. So we have a much better understanding of what the different people, and some want to stay in their own role, which is fine too, of course. So, and that's how we have much more, we move quite a lot around, and that brings in again new perspectives in different teams, because you move people around.
Yeah.
And because they know each other in those sub teams, they can also ask advice. You're in that team. Is that something for me? What are your challenges? So it really bonds the organization. Now, there is time limitations. This is the only downside. Everybody is busy. But we still try to, every year, people that don't want to join that initiatives don't have to. So there are always some that say, this year I have, for whatever reason, not me. And that's also okay. So it's only for the people that are, but it's most of the organization that are interested into this.
Very interesting. Thank you. Finally, Liesbeth, I wonder if there's any advice you could share for people listening, perhaps, who are maybe struggling to make an impact when it comes to championing quality in their organization. If there was one bit of advice that you could share, what would that be?
Yeah, I would still say understand your business, understand your stakeholders, focus more on what they need, and then show the value you can bring to help them. Because if you're forcing your own quality, then it will not work. They need to see the value you bring to them. You need to speak their language and not the quality language.
Is there an easy way to do that?
I never quote regulations or procedures.
Okay.
Never. Because from the moment I say in the procedure, you see my business like, yeah, there's, I see them already like disconnecting. I'm always explaining the value, why it's needed, why it makes sense, what is in it for them. And I would never, the regulation is saying, the procedure is saying, and I see a lot of quality people still going there. You see that they disconnect. I'm in the LTs of supply chain, external manufacturing, device, packaging, and CMC. Some always, some ad hoc, because I need to also balance my own time. I really listen carefully on how is their world, what are their challenges, and try to convince the quality ways in their language. And that's when they start to really listen and think, they're helping me. They're not just blocking as quality. This, good idea. Let's do it like that.
Yeah.
So don't quote too much regulations, procedures, quality set. So try to speak their language. Not always easy. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but that's really what I would advise.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. Thank you so much for your time. Fascinating conversation. And we're really looking forward to seeing you at CDMO Live in May as well.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Experience the future of contract manufacturing at CDMO Live 2025. Join us at the World Trade Centre Rotterdam on May the 7th and 8th, 2025 for an exclusive event that brings together the sharpest minds in biopharma outsourcing. For 2 days filled with market insights, best practices and partnering. So head to cdmolive.com to download the agenda and to book your ticket.